Well, good morning everyone, and on behalf of the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome you all to this morning's information webinar on the UK Government Kickstart Scheme. My name's Jo Davidson and I'm Director of Policy here at the Chamber, and it's my very great pleasure to host this morning's session. The Kickstart Scheme, as I'm sure many of you will know and as we'll hear in more detail this morning, is a UK Government scheme which was announced by the Chancellor Rishi Sunak in July 2020 as part of the UK Government's Plan for Jobs, which set out the biggest package of support for youth unemployment in decades. The £2 billion funded programme enables qualifying employers to offer youngsters aged 16 to 24 who meet specific criteria a 6-month work placement, with the government paying 100% of the age-relevant national minimum wage, national insurance and pension contributions for 25 hours a week. In addition, wraparound support funding is also provided for any training and equipment costs associated with these job placements. This morning is the second in a series of events we're doing highlighting the benefits of the Kickstart scheme, and this one is focusing specifically on how this can support businesses in our hospitality sector. And I think, given the audience this morning, you'll all agree that any scheme which benefits and supports this much impacted sector in this way is very sorely needed at the moment. On the one hand, we currently have an issue with high levels of unemployment across the country, particularly amongst our young people. So in the UK as a whole, around 700,000 young people were set to leave education and enter the job market in 2020, with around 250,000 more people aged under 25 claiming unemployment benefits since March 2020. And in Edinburgh specifically, latest figures on universal credit claiming counts we've seen to the end of March 2021 show that the overall Edinburgh universal credit claiming count rate increased by about 160% between February 2020 and March 2021. That's nearly double the Scottish increase. And across the city region as a whole, we've seen an increase of 108% in 16 to 24-year-old claimants, and in areas where we don't normally see significant numbers of unemployment benefit claimants. And with the end of the furlough scheme now in sight, most experts agree that these numbers will only increase. Yet on the other hand, we know from many of you and our hospitality members that you're currently struggling to fill positions. According to some recent data we've seen since March 2020, almost 300,000 overseas hospitality workers in the UK are thought to have left their jobs and returned to their home countries. There's no way of knowing if they will ever return or how many of the existing furloughed hospitality workforce will choose to remain in the sector once the scheme ends. And in Edinburgh alone, anecdotal numbers from the City Council estimate that before the start of the pandemic, there were around 18,000 migrant workers in the city, and this figure is now estimated to be around 5,000. And we're only really seeing the beginning of this issue now that hospitality is tentatively beginning its reopening. So this is where we believe that Kickstart might have a role to play. As a member of the British Chambers of Commerce, we've been working very closely with colleagues at the Department for Work and Pensions since last year on the design and implementation of the Kickstart scheme, trying to make sure that the needs and requirements of our members in the wider business community, particularly smaller businesses, are taken into account. And as a Kickstart Gateway organisation, something you'll hear more about this morning, we're currently supporting 92 employers who themselves are creating 322 vacancies at various stages of approval in businesses in the city. So in terms of impact, that means we've got 22 young Kickstarters now in positions which we've helped employers to create. So that's 62 young people at risk of long-term unemployment we are supporting to get into work, while also helping businesses address some of their employment needs. This morning I'm delighted that we have Jimmy O'Connell, Head of Operations here at the Edinburgh Chamber, who manages our Kickstart session, who will be one of our expert speakers taking us through the details of the scheme. Jimmy's worked in employability in Edinburgh and the region for many years. Before taking on this role at the Chamber, he was a senior member of the Developing the Young Workforce team. And Jimmy is joined this morning by Mark Mackay, Kickstart Business Manager for the East of Scotland with the Department for Work and Pensions. Mark and his team have had the unenviable but critical job of delivering the scheme live and in the round, as it were, with the DWP team working very closely with the Chamber to try and navigate the new initiative. Also joining us this morning, we're delighted to have Suzanne Mann from DWP. Suzanne is the Service Lead for East Scotland, and we'll also say a few words at some point during the session, as will Rachel Finlay, Jimmy's colleague at the Chamber. So we couldn't really be in better hands this morning. Before I hand over to Jimmy and Mark to take us through the detail of the scheme, just some points of format. The speakers will do the presentation and speak, and then hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. I know we're all very familiar with the etiquette now, but if you could please remember to stay on mute while you're not speaking. You can feel free to put any questions in the chat or raise your hand electronically during the Q&A session, and hopefully we'll get a chance to address those before we close off at 10:30 this morning. So with that, over now to Jimmy. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining me. Can I ask Rebecca if you want to just share the first slide for us, please? Yeah, so good morning and welcome to our Kickstart information event with a hospitality focus. Really the running order today, we're just going to keep things pretty conversational and informal. So any questions that you may have, you can put them into chat. And certainly at the end, there'll be an opportunity for everybody to ask any questions that they have, and we'll be able to share the slides with you all after today's session. I'm really going to talk a little bit more about the Kickstart scheme and just flesh out a bit more about the eligibility criteria and what it actually means. And we'll be looking at some of the hospitality focus and the hospitality sector within Edinburgh as well, and how businesses can start to create new opportunities within their organisations and the help and support that we can offer. Rachel is going to talk about the application process. She is our admin expert when it comes to all things Kickstart, and is solely responsible for making everybody's application run really smoothly and getting these opportunities up and running for the businesses and supporting DWP as well. Mark Mackay is going to talk a little bit more about the client group within DWP, so these are the universal credit claimants, the types of roles that they're looking for, and really what kind of expectations that both the employer and the young people should expect from this program as well. Suzanne Mann is going to speak as well and give us a few comments on the Kickstart scheme and the aims and objectives of it. We're going to then focus on a little bit about the Gateway and Gateway Plus, and the support that we can offer you and the advantages of working with the Gateway organisation as well. One of the key areas that we get lots of inquiries about is about the grant funding and the wraparound support, payment schedules and eligible expenditure. So we'll talk you through some of the headline queries in relation to that. And again, usually at the end we get quite a number of questions about that. So ourselves, all of us that are speaking today, will be available to answer those questions. I'm then going to focus a little bit on the evidence requirements in terms of wraparound support and to back up any potential audit claims. And then we will finally wrap up with the question and answer session as well. So Rebecca, if you want to move on to the next slide, please. So what is a Kickstart scheme? As Joe said, it was launched in July last summer, 2020 by Rishi Sunak. It is, in essence, it's a government-funded paid work experience for young people who are in receipt of universal credit. They're under the age of 24. They are deemed at risk of becoming potentially long-term unemployed. And the support that DWP are offering in terms of the Kickstart scheme is about giving real opportunities, real work experience in a real business for these young people so that they improve their long-term employability prospects. It is a number of DWP and schemes that are designed to help and support individuals off universal credit into long-term sustainable employment. It's probably the most high-profile one out there at the moment, and it is proving very, very popular. If we just move on to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the eligibility criteria. Any business, any shape and size is able to participate in the Kickstart scheme. The key thing to remember is that Kickstart is not there for businesses to replace their normal recruitment practices. It's about a business saying, we want to support a young person. We have capacity in our organization to create a new opportunity to help develop the long-term employability prospects of somebody who is really in need of that. We have got that capacity in our business, but also we will benefit from that as well. So there's a mutual benefit, both for the young person and for the business as well. The key thing to remember is that, as I said, and I can't emphasize this enough, because DWP do scrutinize this and they will look into it, that it cannot replace any current or future planned vacancies within your business. So as I said, just to re-emphasize this, this is not about mainstream recruitment, it's about creating additional opportunities within your organization. It must also not cause existing employees in your business to reduce or lose their employment. So that's reducing the number of hours or their job roles changing significantly that would reduce their mainstream employment. And again, this also applies to any third-party contractors that you use in your business as well. So they must also not lose or have their work reduced. So again, the key thing that DWP and the government, UK government, are looking at here is that this scheme will provide support to somebody who is in receipt of universal credit under the age of 24, but not at the expense of individuals that are currently already employed. If we just move on to the next slide. So in Edinburgh, today's theme is really around supporting hospitality, but also let's remember this will encompass the service industry, customer service, other sectors as well, in particularly the third sector. In Edinburgh, we all know as a city, tourism, hospitality, huge business, has been massively affected by COVID. And businesses are now beginning to come out of lockdown in the sector, and they're tentatively reopening. But we know and we understand that we're probably not going to be trading at pre-COVID levels until probably 2-3 years down the line. So the number of opportunities, mainstream opportunities within these businesses are not available, but there is certainly scope for hospitality and service sector businesses to create these kickstart opportunities that are going to be fully funded and provide the training, the support and the mentoring for a new cohort of individuals who are really interested in moving into the hospitality industry. As Jo focused on her opening comments, there are a lot of individuals that were currently or previously employed in hospitality, and that's foreign nationals, but also those that are domiciled within the UK permanently, have moved on. They've now moved out of the hospitality sector, and there's now these vacancies and businesses are struggling to recruit. What I want to do now is just to hand over to Suzanne Mann, the service lead for East of Scotland, who's just going to talk a little bit more from the DWP perspective about the client group and the Kickstart scheme. So Suzanne, if you'd like to say a few words, please.
Brilliant, thank you, Jimmy, and good morning, everyone. Yes, as we sort of have reflected, the Kickstart scheme really is the flagship scheme that we have in our plan for jobs to try and support our young customers away from that dependence on long-term unemployment, long-term reliance on the welfare system, and really give them the skills and the experience to make them attractive to future employment, sustaining that sort of long-term employment for them and securing their future. So as we know in any previous recessions and any other sort of high levels of unemployment, it's our young people that have the biggest scarring. They actually suffer the most because they can't get that first step onto the employment ladder. They're in this vicious circle of they need experience to get employment, but to get the experience, they need the employment. So that's the whole intent of Kickstart, is to give them that experience, give them the exposure to what it's like to live in the employed world, what it's like to get up, go to work, gain significant amount of experience to allow them to be attractive to future employers going forward. So we in the Department of Work and Pensions, we have work coaches, an army of work coaches who work closely with our 16 to 24-year-olds that are claiming universal credit. And we do lots and lots of work with them to make sure that they are as job ready as they possibly can be, whether that's be about exploring new options for them, making sure they've got CVs and covering letters, and that they are securing as many opportunities as they can. We have a variety of different schemes that we use to help them be attractive to employers going forward. But the biggest flagship one of all of those right now is absolutely Kickstart. So the kind of folks that we're working with here, they're young, they're either just newly out of education or newly looking for a better opportunity from sort of very entry-level jobs. So we are looking to really guide, support and help them through all of that. But to do that, we need the support of the businesses in our local organisations, our local communities, to be able to provide that opportunity, to provide the experience, to provide the wraparound support. These folks will need training, they will need some mentoring, and that's what the funding is there to be able to do. We will fund you to provide that sort of wraparound support, to make them have the confidence, to have the experience and to have that sort of desire and make them really, really employable. So everything that we do really has the customer at the heart. We really try to look at everything from their point of view and from a business point of view, but what can this bring to your business, but equally what can it bring to our customer and make them attractive to our future employers. So to kind of talk you through a little bit more about the type of candidates that we have and the type of opportunities that we have, I'll just hand you over to Mark Mackay, who'll tell you a little bit more detail.
Thanks, Suzanne. Hope you can all hear me. The candidate pool that we're looking for in this current role is for basic entry-level hospitality type roles, right up to the sort of more niche roles we can get. So to do a count on the candidates that we have interested in hospitality customer service, we're looking at initially the kind of High Riggs Job Centre coverage, the Leith Job Centre coverage and Wester Hales. That gives you the sort of centre of Edinburgh initially, and that shows between 300 and 400 candidates between those particular offices who have expressed an interest in hospitality and customer service, who are currently available and looking for roles within the sector. There are over 1,900 18 to 24-year-olds currently on those live loads, we call them, within those offices. And that's not taking into account the expansion into Forth Valley, West Lothian, Mid Lothian, East and Borders as well. If any of your outlets are in any of those areas, that's going to add even more candidates to the pool within easy striking distance of some of your outlets there. So there's lots of scope to increase the amount of vacancies in your sector. We currently have 162 vacancies in hospitality and Kickstart in East Scotland, and that is even before you guys were given the green light with coming out of furlough and opening up at the start of last week, etc. Because we all know how everyone is excited, employers and customers, to get back out and enjoy the surroundings once more and being a bit more social. So it's a really exciting time. We do hope that you will take us up and in partnership. It's when we say it's a no risk sort of placement, what we mean is we are definitely investing the money side of it with you. We're going to pay a grant fund over the 6-month period, and we're also going to front up some training costs, but we can't get away from it and we won't hide from it. We are asking you to host and devote some of your precious time to looking after a young person, and hopefully from the start of the 6-month placement to near the end, when you have a wee review discussion with work coaches and the customers, we hope that you'll have moulded that individual into a candidate that you would actually then recruit and use your normal recruitment process for. So it's to take your employer hat on and put your host hat on at the start when you're looking at selecting the candidates available. When we're looking at candidates, I've been working with one of our team leaders, and we wanted to give you a flavour of the type of candidate and the level and the sort of criteria that we would want to bring. Now, we've got customers who have little or no experience at all. They've just simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time with regards to recession, with regard to the pandemic, but it might simply be that they just aren't built at this moment in time to impress you at a straight recruitment. So sitting down in front of an interview, their personality might not come across to the fore. They might be lacking in confidence, obvious experience and qualifications, etc., etc. But I know employers out there have got that inbuilt gut feeling that you can spot a potential for an individual that might not have come out their shell. And we have got loads of case studies and comments from employers out there in Kickstart already that simply say, we would never have picked this person up during normal recruitment. And now they are blossoming on the shop floor, dealing with the public, interacting with my team, and that we are proud to say that we've moulded them into a confident individual, and it's a mutual appreciation, because the customer themselves sometimes can't believe how far they can flourish with just a little bit of acknowledgement of their potential and a bit of trust. So that's a good area as well. The people who are interested in hospitality and customer service but haven't been given a chance yet. So normal recruitment policy, we hope we're going to get back to normal soon for everyone out there, including yourselves on the recruitment side. But at the moment, this would be a great bridge for you to invest in getting an extra pair of hands, stamp your company ethos on them, and there's no competition involved as with normal recruitment. So you would be getting an individual based from a very small pool that you would be looking at and deciding on the one or two or three, or dare I say even more, depending on your current setup. So there's less competition for the candidates. There's less competition for you. The time scale is it's fast. We can get candidates to you within a few weeks from you deciding that you want to put a vacancy on. In some cases, almost immediate. We've got queues waiting at the job centres, so to speak. And it's an opportunity for someone to get their foot in the door, get trained up, and they might be the person that you're looking for at the end of that placement. So there is no obligation to recruit an individual at the end of the placement. But what we're finding is most employers are saying, why would I invest 6 months in that individual, make them into the person that we would love them to be in our business, and then hand them over to a competitor? Because ultimately it's to make them more employable from day one to the end of the 6 months. So that's what we're looking at. Customers have previously worked in sectors and due to COVID have maybe lost their jobs and just haven't managed to return. We all know that we would love all of our sort of early foundation level candidates to get into that first chance, but we do realise there's a lot of guys and girls out there who maybe were on furlough and are not now, that do have some experience to bring to the fore. So we won't obviously be trying to hide them away from you and trying to get you to take on the guys that have the blank sheets of paper on the CV score. You will be able to tap into some talent there that they do already have some experience, and we would hope to fit the bill. Customers who've got additional barriers as well, not forgetting our disability confident side of things, where we've got customers who have health conditions and disabilities, and we've got a very good connection with the Edinburgh City Council and making it a longer process for you as well. It's not just the 6 months. We could quite easily move into the youth guarantee and extend the placement by a further 6 months there. So it's about managing the expectations for yourself. We will do our best to give you the quality, the minimum criteria that you ask for. You are our customer, the employer, in this way, and we would hope to match our work coaches customers to you. I had asked just to finish off on it, the work coach team leader just to give us a flavour of what the work coaches would like to say when they're talking to you as an employer. And I'm going to quote Lauren, she's on the call here just now. Our ask as work coaches would be to consider all roles from entry level to graduate. Our caseloads lean towards entry level vacancies such as cleaners, waiting, bar, kitchen staff, but we will always work hard to fill a role that is either niche or graduate level as well. So don't, no door unlocked there. We support our customers with all the prep and getting ready for applying and getting started, and would be excited to work with you and building our customers with you, leading on the next step of their journey. So that's a quote from a work coach team leader who is vouching for the work coaches who in turn advocate all of the young guys and girls that are coming in to see them at the moment, who just need that first chance, that first wee sort of step up in the ladder, and for you to invest a wee bit of confidence in them. And very quickly it's turned round into an individual that you probably, as I say, wouldn't have picked up in an interview in a standard recruitment process, but they will be all the better for it because that's given them their first nod of confidence from an employer who's taking the chance on them. So I'll just hand you back over to Jimmy.
Yep. Thanks. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Suzanne. I think the real take-home message, I think, from the commentary from Suzanne and Mark is that the Kickstart scheme there's a lot of resources gone into developing the program. That employers like yourselves should be reassured that there is teams of work coaches. There's lots of support going on there to help young people become more employable. They're there to support both the employer and the young person as well. And so really the key thing to remember is it's about supporting young people, getting their employability skills up and running, and it cannot be done without the involvement of the employer and that's yourselves, and it's key, and the wraparound support and all of that. And once you get all of that together, and we all work together, then this scheme will be really, really successful. We're going to move on now to the application process. This is a bit more kind of the nitty-gritty. How do we actually get involved in the scheme, and how does it work? We've got Rachel, who is going to talk you through that process, talk about some of how to complete the forms, a bit about the due diligence checking as well, and the support that we can offer. So over to you, Rachel.
Hi everyone. Rebecca, could you pop on the next slide for us, please? So as Jimmy says, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about our application form, which is in the form of an employer data capture form. And it's quite straightforward in what it asks for, and the majority of the details that the form asks for should be rather ready to hand for you. So our first section of the form asks for things such as your employer details, so the contact information of the person handling the application, as well as the company's address and the company's house number. An important thing to note with that is that the address that you pop on that form must be the address associated to your company's house number. Otherwise, that can present a slight issue at the due diligence checking, but I can move on to that slightly later. The form will also ask you, as echoed through the discussion today, for information to show that the job placement won't replace any existing vacancies or any planned recruitment. So you must state how this placement that you're creating is solely created for the scheme. It is an additional role and it won't harm any current employees' hours. The second part of the application form is more centred around the vacancy details of the position that you're hoping to create. So we tend to capture all these details at the very start of the process just to streamline the whole process for you. So in this vacancy details section, what it will ask for is a job description, which we would ask you to be as detailed as possible, as the more detail and description you can provide of the tasks and the responsibilities the Kickstarter would have to undertake, the better able the client will be able to see if they would be able to do that role, if the role is something that they'd be interested in getting into. So the form will also again ask for other bits and pieces such as the hours of work, and as we've discussed, the scheme will cover 25 hours a week for 6 months, but you can offer more full-time hours, but any hours in excess of the 25 would need to be topped up from your own business accounts, and we'll also ask for a working pattern. But one of the important sections in this application form that I'd like to discuss is there will be a section that states for any essential experience and skills. And as discussed by Jimmy and Mark throughout the talk today, is just please consider the client group that this scheme is aimed at. And the more specific the skills are needed, potentially the less likely you are to receive a big pool of candidates who are interested in the job. So while degree educated individuals are on universal credit, this is more the exception than the norm in most cases. So once you fill in your application form, the perk of applying through a gateway such as us at Edinburgh Chamber is I'll be able to pre-screen your application. I'll be able to go through, just make sure that all the details are correct and be able to see if there's anything that could potentially flag up during the application review process. And if there is, that'll be the stage where I can get back in touch with yourself and just give you some hints and tips and pointers on anything that needs to be tweaked and adjusted. So once your application's all ready to go, this will then be sent across to DWP to review. At present, the review period is approximately 4 weeks to get a turnaround on that. In some cases it can be slightly longer, in some cases it's slightly faster, but DWP are just handling a high volume of applications, but the 4-week mark tends to be when we'd have an application outcome. But once your application's sent off to DWP, all applications will undergo DWP due diligence check-in. So DWP utilise Spotlight, the government's online automated due diligence checking tool, which complements pre and post award checks, highlighting areas of risk to inform grant making decisions. The tool provides enhanced checks powered by Experian that highlight financial viability, ultimate beneficial ownership, international links and fraud risks. So in layman's terms, this is the equivalent of a credit check for businesses, and the results from the Spotlight tool determine whether DWP will accept or reject an application. So the main potential reasons we've found rejection to happen, they tend to surround the company date of incorporation. So any companies that have been incorporated for less than 12 months are likely to be rejected, unfortunately. It will also look at fiscal history. So if your company either has any adverse credit history or a lack of credit history, it is also likely to result in rejection. And another factor to consider is the ratio of current staff to Kickstart employees, as DWP tend to operate on a 3-to-1 ratio. So for every 3 full-time staff, you would be able to take on 1 Kickstarter. But in some cases, this would be bypassed if the placement would benefit the wider client group. So once your application form goes through those checks, and hopefully within the 4-week time frame, we'll then get a result from that. And if approved, that's when I'll get in touch to discuss next steps. So what will happen once your application is approved, we'll then go through your vacancy details and just make sure that you're happy with all the details on the form, that everything's filled out correctly and all the dates for closing dates and everything are correct. And once that's ready, it will then be sent across to our DWP vacancy team, who will then action your vacancies as live for applicants to apply. Please note that the vacancies will only be able to be viewed through Job Centre and DWP Central intranet systems. And this is just to ensure that only eligible applicants can apply for the roles that we're making available. However, you will be able to utilise some promotional material that we can say to advertise your participation in the scheme. So once your vacancy is then live on the build for applicants to apply, this is where the work coaches come in, and the work coaches will work with their clients to go through any vacancies that they think their client would be quite well suited to. And once they identify vacancies that their client would be keen, they would then make a referral introduction. So you will get a referral introduction email, which will state the name of the candidate, their unique introduction ID, as well as some other details on next steps. And once you have that referral introduction in, what will then happen is the applicant will then make an application to yourself and your preferred method of application, which will state on your application form and vacancy template. So the candidate will then apply with CV or covering letter. And then from there, you will be able to conduct your own recruitment processes, whether that's interviewing, a quick phone call, chat. But in essence, the best way to be is once you've got a few referrals in, a few applicants in, try and just to get these people straight into the business, because we want to fill these vacancies. We want to make sure that the client groups are getting in these roles and that we don't have a vacancy sat for 4 weeks waiting just to build up a group of maybe 15 to 20 candidates to then interview. But at the minute, the application process, very simple, very easy. We are here to sort of coach you through this process. There's no silly questions. All questions is a good question. Another thing that we've pulled together as well is we've got our own employer information pack. So myself and Jimmy have pulled together quite a comprehensive information pack that will walk you through the application form and give you some hints and tips all the way through to due diligence check-ins, through to when your application's approved to rejected, and also some hints and tips on recruitment. But that's the application process in a whole. If you would like to make an application through us, please do get in touch. And I would say at present, from point of making your application through to application approval, it's taking about 6 to 8 weeks. So that's just a time frame to bear in mind. But that's me. I'll hand you back to Jimmy.
Thank you. I noticed there's a hand up from Eunice. If we don't mind, if we're able to maybe ask questions at the end, because we'll be speaking for another few minutes, and we'll be able to take any questions verbally then. Thanks, Rachel, for that. Quite a lot of detail there given on the application process. Again, what I would say is the take-home message is we're here as your gateway. We're there to help and support, and we're here to make the process as smooth as possible. It is actually very simple and straightforward, and we've put together a lot of tools and resources just to make that to make it easier for you. We're just going to move on to the next slide, please, Rebecca, to talk a bit about gateways and Gateway Plus. And Gateway Plus, I'll talk about. I'm not an expert on it, but I'll be able to give you a little bit of information. So, role of gateways, application, approval, and support and payment. So, we're approved by DWP to act as a gateway organisation. We're basically that conduit for the business to work with DWP. We handle your application, we present it to DWP, we support you in getting your application approved, and we are responsible for funneling and channeling all of the monies that come from DWP through to yourselves as well. So that's for your wraparound support grant, and that is for the wage payments as well. Why do we use a gateway? Well, it's to make the process simpler for you as well. It means that we will carry out all of that groundwork, all of the day-to-day dross and communication that needs to go on in terms in relation to applications, etc. We will do all of that for you, and the process therefore should be very simple. It's you present us with your application, we'll carry out all of the background stuff for you. We'll highlight any issues or concerns that we have in terms of the pre-screening, and the advantages of it as well, particularly for smaller organisations, is DWP look favourably on businesses applying through gateways, because pre-approved gateway organisations have already demonstrated their commitment to the wraparound support. We have tools and resources, etc., in place as well. So it's a good way of businesses being able to say, we're working with a gateway, we're committed to this programme and providing the employability support as well. In terms of the wraparound support, this is something that we have carried out a lot of work, a lot of research. We've gathered together a lot of resources from various different sources, and that's including, we've developed this, call it a wraparound toolkit, and it will cover a lot of free training that is available for young people. Again, it's very much geared at young people training resources. There may be resources coming from Skills Development Scotland. It could be resources developed specifically by the DYW group. There's also the funded opportunities as well that businesses can access. So these are where you wouldn't actually have to pay for it. So that could be, vocational based units. Again, in line with Skills Development Scotland contracts as well. And then there's the commercial and third-party training provision as well. So we have worked with some of our chamber members, which I believe some are on the call today as well. So the Prince's Trust have developed a package of support that is clearly referenced in our wraparound support toolkit. And then we have individuals who offer mentoring support as well. And these are all available for you as employers to look at. We try not to be overly prescriptive. So we're not telling you what you should do or what you shouldn't do, but we're providing you with as wide a market choice as possible. And of course, we've developed our own wraparound Kickstart workshops as well, which are half-day workshops, very much curated for the client group, so individuals that are moving into the world of work for the first time. And also we recognise that not every employer will be able to, although they're providing a Kickstart placement, will not be able to provide permanent employment thereafter. So it's about, what additional help that we can provide in terms of job search and interview techniques for those individuals when in preparation for leaving their placement and moving into full-time employment thereafter. So all of that is there. It's comprehensive, it evolves. I think we're on to the maybe fourth iteration of it just now. Because the funding landscape changes, the training landscape changes all the time. So we're trying to keep a step ahead and give you the latest and most up-to-date information there as well. The next point on the slide here is Gateway Plus. You will have heard us referring several times through the conversation this morning about businesses applying to us, and we ask for the company's house number. We will, as a gateway organisation, we can only work with businesses that have a company's house and corporation number. But what I did say is that Kickstart is available for all businesses of all shapes and sizes. Businesses that do not have a company's house and corporation number can approach a Gateway Plus organisation to become part of the Kickstart scheme. So they're saying we want to offer a work experience placement for a young person, but we don't have a corporation number. We need to use a Gateway Plus organisation. So Gateway Plus organisations, we can give you some more information on that if you get in touch after today via email, and the email will come up on the last slide. If you need any further information on Gateway Plus, we can certainly signpost you to that. But currently there is there's British Chambers of Commerce are working together with Reed Recruitment. Adecco are working with the Federation of Small Businesses. Manpower and the World Chamber are four Gateway Plus organisations that are able to help those businesses that are either sole traders, partners, or they do not have a company's house corporation number. If we could move on to the next slide, please, and we're going to start to focus on the funding and the payments. So what funding is available? And this is a question that we get asked, and again, Rachel referred to it earlier. What is available is DWP, UK Government, will provide the age-related national minimum wage plus any employer's national insurance contributions and any auto-enrolment require payments that for that young person for a maximum of 26 weeks, or i.e. 6 months within the business. A business can top it up. So some businesses are looking at the real living wage, for example. This is about the national minimum wage that DWP will pay. If you're a real living wage employer, you may wish to top that up, but it will come from your own sources for that. There is also the wraparound grant of £1,500. And that is used to provide that wraparound additional employability training and support, any onboarding costs, any equipment costs that include IT, telephone, etc., that would be required for that individual to start in your business. It could be, for example, in hospitality, it could be elementary food hygiene, it could be some forms of health and safety training provided by third-party training providers, and your wraparound support grant would be eligible to eligible to use the funding for that. There is what it can't be used for. So some of the questions we've had in the past is driving lessons was a question that was raised because the role itself that the individual was moving into would involve driving. But we went to DWP and said, could they use a wraparound for that? And DWP came back and said no, because it's a life skill, not an essential job skill. We've also had queries where businesses have said, but we provide our own internal mentoring and training, so we'll use the wraparound support for that. Again, that wouldn't be eligible because that training would automatically, naturally happen within it. So it's about third-party external training provision and being able to evidence that and have the invoices for it. In terms of clawback, there isn't any specific clawback process in place. That may change later on, but it's just to be aware that, so for example, if you had a candidate that started and you got your 1,500 wraparound support, but they only lasted a week and then left, DWP wouldn't come back to you and say, can you give us the £1,500 back? What they would expect is if you were replacing that left candidate, they would get 1,500 plus the other 1,500 would be there already, and you would therefore then have an enhanced pot of money where you would be able to use that to provide even more employability training and support for that individual as well. Payment of wages, and in terms of timescales, what I should say is once we get a positive confirmation that the candidate has started in placement with yourselves, then it's approximately 10 working days from that date that the £1,500 wraparound comes into our account, and then we transfer that minus any agreed deductions. So we would have a conversation with you about any additional training that you would like to purchase from ourselves. We would deduct that from the £1,500, and then within 5 working days, the rest of the balance would be transferred over to yourselves. You are not required to purchase any training from us. We would like you to do so, but the £1,500 is there for you to decide what you wish to do with that. In terms of wages, the first wage payment will come in approximately 6 weeks after the start date of the candidate. And the wages are paid. You don't have to provide any timesheets or anything like that to ourselves or to DWP, but what you must do is make sure that your Kickstart candidate is enrolled in your PAYE system, because DWP will get the real-time information from HMRC in relation to that, and they will be able to see what has been paid to the candidate, and then they will make the payment to ourselves in parallel with what has been paid to the Kickstart candidate. And again, once we receive it within 5 working days, it will come to yourself from ourselves as well. Gateway role, again, this is very much about making sure that you receive your money timely, and that there isn't any delays or any blockages in relation to that. And we have really robust admin processes in place between myself, Rachel, and Eve, our head of finance, and we've had no problems thus far in relation to money coming in. DWP are very, very prompt in making payments to ourselves, and everything comes in and is all referenced, so we've had no problems with that. So in terms of reassuring yourselves as employers, the monies are coming in efficiently, quickly, and we're getting it out the door to yourselves as well. In terms of early leavers as well, there isn't, yes, just let us know once if the candidate was to leave early. Again, your PAYE system, you wouldn't be paying your candidate once they leave, so that information would be fed into DWP as well. And what you will find is that you will get a payment your first wage payment will come in at 6 weeks, and then usually every 4 weeks thereafter. So once your candidate finishes at the end of their 6 months, there would be a final payment of wages approximately 4 weeks thereafter as well. If we then move on to the next slide, please, Rebecca, onto evidence and records. Evidencing wraparound support. Again, this is common sense. We talk about you need to evidence your expenditure in relation to the wraparound support. Again, if you're booking any external training, just keep the invoices and any bank statements in relation to that, certificates of achievement as well. In terms of, because it's financial records, in terms of audit requirements, you would be required to keep that evidence for a minimum of 7 years. And somebody's just come in here and said the employer would need to cover the first wage and then it would be reimbursed after 6 weeks. Yes, that is the case. The employer won't be out of pocket, but yes, in essence, you would be cash flowing that first wage payment. And that was just a comment there I've seen in the chat. And audit requirements, again, as I say, it's just your normal standard, good record keeping, good evidence keeping of your financial records. And then the last point on the slide here is the Gateway Employer Agreement. So this is an agreement that we are required as part of our role with DWP as a gateway organisation, that we need every single employer that we work with to sign a Gateway Employer Agreement. And we need a hard physical copy of that signed back with ourselves as well. Again, the process is all managed by Rachel. It's very simple and straightforward. She sends it out with your details pre-populated into it and the instructions in relation to that there. It's just a quick signature and you send that back. But what we won't do is we're not able to make payment until we've got that employer gateway agreement back from you. I haven't had any problems thus far. Yes, we're all working remotely at the moment, but I am popping into the office every week to gather up all of those and file them away safely and securely. And we can email scan copies over to you after that as well. That's pretty much all I wanted to cover today. I'm aware that it's quite a lot to take in. I did notice that there was a comment in the chat earlier as well. Yes, absolutely, the slides will be sent over to yourselves, to every participant today on the call. I would like to really just emphasize that we are there to support and to help and to guide you through that process. We're successfully working with 90+ employers at the moment. We're managing over 300+ vacancies. Our systems and processes are working really well. But I can't emphasize the importance of just pick up the phone, give us a call, any questions, any queries. That's what we're there to do and help. If you're not too sure whether or not you could create an opportunity, have that chat with us, because you never know. Myself, I've been working in this industry for 20+ years. There's lots of ways that we can help and support you create those opportunities in your business as well. So if we just move on to the last slide, where we have questions, and if you bring up the other points as well on the slide, please, Rachel or Rebecca. There's just the details here. So for follow-up, we're obviously your gateway organisation. Our email address is there on our telephone number as well. And then we have some DWP contacts too. That's pretty much all I wanted to say. We would just like to open the floor now to any particular questions. And Joe, if you want to come in and maybe manage that process.
Thanks, Jimmy, and thanks to all of our speakers this morning. A lot of information to process, as I'm sure we'd all agree, but very comprehensive, which is great. Eunice, you've had your hand up for quite some time, and I know you have to leave promptly. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so can I bring you in very quickly just to raise your point, assuming you're still happy to do that before you head off?
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, and this was really insightful and helpful. And thank you for sharing the deck once the meeting is over, so thank you in advance. My question is relating to, in our group, we've got a couple of hotels. We've just acquired 2 restaurants. and 3 carryouts. Now, when we're talking about hospitality, is it the hotels and the restaurants, or do the carryouts count into that equation as well? And I need to check with my cousin who runs that side of our business. We might have acquired the businesses under a new company name, or if it was acquired with the existing company, then some of these places have been going for 5 years, 7 years, 8 years. So I just want to understand the 12-month window, please.
I could talk a little bit about that. It's the 12-month window is really about the incorporation period, and it's about Cabinet Office Spotlight tool that DWP use. Really the results that come from that is they will assess a business, and there's 3 results that come out of it, and it's high, medium, or low risk. So low risk businesses will automatically be approved. Medium risk businesses at the very start weren't being approved, but they're now being looked at in a good bit more detail by DWP before any decision is made. But with a business that's been incorporated less than 12 months, it is automatically deemed high risk, and therefore it wouldn't be eligible. And it is just because it just will not pass through the Cabinet Office Spotlight tool check. So we've had a few examples of businesses in that there, but the scheme was running until December this year. So you can still apply up to December 2021. And if you've just managed to pass the 12-month window, between now and then I would encourage you to apply then.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jimmy. I'm super conscious of time. I know we do have a couple of questions. If we just very quickly go through them, hopefully we can address everything before we finish off. So Graham Murdoch had a question around, does the role created have to be a new role? So for example, if we have a full team of customer service advisors, can we create an additional customer service role? If not, is the expectation to create more niche roles?
You can create an additional role. If it's a new role, a new opportunity, you've got a full team of, say, 25 customer advisors, and then you think, oh, this Kickstart scheme's here. Oh, I can create a 26th one. No problem.
Brilliant. Great. Thank you, Jimmy. And Kat is asking how long a young person will continue to receive the universal credit if they need to wait 6 weeks for their first wage. I don't know if any DWP colleagues can pick that one up.
Mark, are you able to talk about that?
Yeah, well, actually, Lauren is one of the team leaders on the operational section. So, Lauren, do you want to pitch in with that one from your point of view? Is Lauren there?
I can hear. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened there. So in terms of universal credit, we rely on the information that comes from the PYE system from HMRC. So obviously, if the employer is obviously putting through the first wage, they will still continue to receive universal credit, but it will be, we have a taper. So it might be that they get a top up of their wages from universal credit to see them through. And the universal credit will continue to run until basically someone is over the threshold. So that is over the 35 hours times national minimum wage for somebody within the 18 to 24 age group. So if you were looking to pay somebody with the living wage, or certainly if you were planning to pay a wage higher than that, if you were planning on having more hours, it might be that until that wage comes through, that they will still continue to receive their universal credit, but after that point the claim might close, but that's because they're then earning enough money at that point. If not, it would just be a continued top up from then.
Brilliant. Thanks Lauren for that. And just a very final question, Kat is asking how long a young person, sorry, no, we've covered that one. John Lawton is asking, given the company's house number requirements, does this exclude SCIO or charity employers immediately? Who can pick that one up?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to report that there are charities already on Kickstart. There's a lot of instances where the instructions, when you're reading it, it tells you put a 0 in the company's house if you're a registered charity, etc., and it gives you opportunities. Golf clubs, things like that aren't running as a limited companies, etc. They're also available, so that there is opportunities there. The only exception to the rule is, as Jimmy had hinted on, it was the sole trader side, and they need to go through the gateway pluses. Everyone else should be catered for.
Brilliant, Mark. Thank you very much. We've run out of time and more, unfortunately, this morning, but thank you so much to all of our expert speakers. It is a fabulous scheme. The mutual benefits that it derives are something that we would absolutely encourage you to explore and to look at, and to please come and make contact with us, as Jimmy and Mark and colleagues have offered this morning. Can I thank our expert speakers for their time, for their insight, for their expertise, for making a very complicated issue seem much more straightforward than I know it's been for them to navigate and set up as we've been running it over the course of the last few months. Can I thank the Chamber team for organising the event today, and Rebecca for steering us through the slides so smoothly. And can I also thank all of you for attending, for your time, for your interest, for your engagement. And hopefully we'll look forward to welcoming you to the scheme at some point soon, or to another Chamber event at some point over the course of the next few months. Thank you all very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.